Hello, all y'all out there on the plane. TheMorgile here for a long video. Uh, it's going to cover a bunch of important topics. First of all, I want to apologize to anyone that I haven't gotten back with on email or on comments and such. I do apologize. I try. But I've gotten so far behind. I barely can make a dent into the comment responses and email responses, but I do try, and sometimes I just work from the top, and sometimes I try to work from the bottom. So the best way to get a hold of me is to call me. Most of y'all out there have my number. I also wanted to thank everybody for your support. About a few weeks ago, I made a video basically because we're losing our home. We basically lost everything, lost our business, and so the several of you out there in the community did step forward and help out. I want to thank each and every one of you sincerely. You know who you are, and I always feel like it's necessary to give credit where credit's due. So I'll do a quick roll of thank yous for all you guys out there that did help. It's really went a long way to keep us from basically being totally screwed. So I also want to thank my good friend Dave down in Roswell, Georgia, for being so patient. We are going to be moving down to Roswell, Georgia, within the next week. We were supposed to have already moved, but my wife got a doctor's appointment notification in the mail for the 27th. So we decided to stay another week, and we'll be moving next week. So just wanted to give everybody sort of an update on that. Things are going okay. It costs a lot of money to move, and thank you so much to all y'all that have supported the channel and contributed. If you would like to, if anyone else would like to help out, you can do so through PayPal or fan funding, and I'll put links up on screen here. At any rate, good news. The copyright strike has been lifted. So I can do longer videos. Ha ha ha. I bet half of you are cringing out there. But I can do longer videos on my main channel, as well as the live streams and the cool little button, whatever those things are called, the cool little what are those darn things called? It's been so long, 6 months since I've used them with those cards. So I'll be able to act like a good boy community member of the YouTube community anymore. So thank goodness that copyright strike was finally lifted, and I'll be doing most of my activity on this channel here, my primary channel, TheMorgile. But if you hadn't checked out my secondary or tertiary channels, TheMorgile 2 or Jonathan Christopoulos, they are featured channels on my featured channel list on my homepage. So that's definitely worth taking a look at if you haven't had a chance. One or the other, I forget which one. I think it's the Morgile 2 is where I hosted at first it was a weekly, then it was a twice a week show, Static Plain Truth. I think we ended up doing 13 or 14 episodes, and we just had a lot of awesome guests. We sort of did it as I don't know, round table where we had like, rotating panel members, and we just had a lot of fun, a lot of really good discussion, a lot of really great proofs being discussed, arguments, and all that really great stuff. So if you haven't checked it out already, I'll put a link in the description to the whole season one archive. But we will be kicking off season two. Well, I kind of just spoiled that announcement, but that wasn't the big one anyway, and I'll do it again at the end, anyways. Um, the funniest thing happened. This was just like a couple days ago. I guess this probably happens all the time, but my wife's laptop crapped out. It was neither her Ethernet ports nor her Wi-Fi would function, so she couldn't get internet on her laptop. And so I had a extra computer, an older computer, pretty decent. I kept it upgraded over the years, but it is older, but decent computer. Um, I set it up for her in her workstation, and it hadn't been used for a while, and so she just sort of allowed all upgrades. You know how Windows does. They'll give you a bunch of upgrades, and you can sort of either pick and choose the ones you want, or just let Windows upgrade everything. And so I imagine she just did the full upgrade. At any rate, she got the fully upgraded Windows 7. That was working fine. Couple of days, and then we wake up one morning, and Windows 10 is sitting there with the welcome screen, the login screen on that computer. So we went to bed with Windows 7 and woke up, and this was after all the updates were done, and woke up with Windows 10. So the only way this could have possibly happened is my cat, Mingo. Let me see if I can get her in here. Mingo Reap! Mingo Reap! Come here, baby. Come here. She's the only cat that comes when you call her. Come here. So this cat right here, she loves to walk on keyboards, and she loves to play with computers. Hey, what's up, man? But yeah, my cat upgraded Windows 7 to Windows 10 the other day on my computer in there. So let me. Actually, I don't even have to pause it. I'll just cut it here. Cut all that out. Come here, you. Okay, so anyway, this cat here may be the first feline or first uh, creature without opposable thumbs to ever upgrade an operating system, not just from 7 to 8, no, not from 8 to 7 to 9 or 9 to 10, but from Windows 7 straight to 10. Um, so when I bought, I didn't buy. I was actually given as a gift a new computer so that I could render videos in decent time. It was taking me about an hour or two to render video in high definition with my computer, and it just made it to the point to where, oh, and not to mention it would crash half the time, often at 99% complete, of course. And so a really good friend of mine helped me to get a computer. And so when my wife's laptop crashed, I gave her my old one to use, which also had Windows 7. When I picked out this new computer, I specifically wanted it with Windows 7 because I had heard I didn't like Windows 8 when I've used it. If I didn't like Windows 8 and I liked Windows 7, then I'm sure not going to try Windows 9. And then it seems like Windows 10, they were just pushing so hard. Like when I got this new computer, they've got that, I guess it's that Get Win X, sort of like a spyware or a very annoying thing where they're constantly trying to get you to upgrade. Okay, so at any rate, uh, my phone just started ringing. I'm using a new application called DroidCam. I think is what it is. DroidCam. It allows you to use your Android phone at like a webcam. It looks like it's got pretty good high definition. You can see Mingo pretty good. You can see me pretty good, right? And so anyway, but yeah, so my cat upgraded a Windows 7 machine to Windows 10. Now, on my new computer, I had removed that Get WinX software almost immediately because it was so annoying, and I didn't want Windows 10 based on what I had heard about the certain not so precious things in the end user license agreement. And so I kept when I actually purchased this computer with Windows 7, specifically to have Windows 7. I kept Windows 7 on my other computer, but it had been out of use, for a couple of months. I hadn't been keeping it updated. And so when my wife ran it up for the first time, it did a bunch of updates. And I'm assuming that Get Win X update uh, came as part of the package. And so when my creepy little critter Mingo cat likes to walk on keyboards, don't ask me why. She just loves to lay lay on wires and walk all over keyboards and click mouse buttons. I mean, she really does. But it appears that yeah, she definitely did upgrade from Windows 7 directly to Windows 10. So I don't know if I should call Guinness. I wished I could have had it recorded. Didn't get it on recording, but it's the only thing that could have happened. My dog's too stupid and not agile enough to get up onto the desk to do that. So yeah, there you go. My cat upgraded Windows 7 to Windows 10. Um, just a quick FYI, this video is going to cover topics all over the place. So I apologize in advance if things get confusing. I do try to tie things together, although I do tend to connect a lot of dots. And maybe you have to watch it twice to really understand what I'm saying because sometimes I even confuse myself. I know. Uh, so, at any rate, oh, and one last thing, there will be a big surprise announcement at the end. Obviously, it's not going to be about the season 2 of the show, which I will do, but I am going to be announcing sort of a bigger, better, way more important surprise at the end. So, you have to sit through to the whole thing, or I'll know. I'll find out, and that ain't good. No, you can skip to the end if you want to. I'll put a little time date or a time that you can skip to if you just want to get to the surprise announcement at the end. But I would urge you to at least watch through the video. So, just again, as a quick introduction, I wanted to humbly and respectfully thank those of you out there who chose to help us get through this tribulation. Many people have offered us shelter and prayer, and a few of you out there have offered monetary support, which has really helped. It's pulled us out of the fire. So really thank you guys. My faith in humanity is being restored by the day over the last year or so. As it just seems like flat Earth brings people together on a common ground that we otherwise didn't have before. But we'll get into that probably a little bit later. At any rate, thank you all so much for your kindness and generosity, even your prayers and kind words, support and encouragement. It really does mean a lot to me, and God bless you all, and thank you so much for helping. I think I mentioned we are still losing our home, but we have a place to move to live, and we'll be moving sometime between the 27th and the 4th of July. It depends on doctor's appointments and other issues in terms of getting a truck and everything that you don't want to hear about. But we will be moving soon. Again, it's to Roswell, Georgia, and it just so happens that I'll be about 20 minutes or so from an old friend from high school. So what do you know? Small world. The point is, all of my videos are out there given freely. I wouldn't feel comfortable, putting a price tag on the truth. I think the truth should be available to everyone freely. If my videos or the hangouts I've done, or the discussions and talks that I've been or participated in, debates and so forth, if that sort of thing has made a difference in your life, then feel free to contribute whatever you feel it's worth. And that could be anything from prayer to a comment to a contribution to the channel. So uh, I certainly don't beg for money. People claim that. I've never done that. I spend a lot of time on getting this truth out, and basically I dedicate all of my time to it, and it's essentially forcibly replaced my other regular comfortable means of income for many years. And after my accident, I'm not able to fall back on manual jobs like I used to. And so, flat Earth has sort of been this, bittersweet thing in my life. I probably never would have become a flat earther had I not been hit by that car on my motorcycle. Like, honestly, the chain of events leading up, after that, I was just riding my motorcycle down the road through a green light, and a guy ran a red light and creamed me. Luckily, it was raining that day, so I had on, a full face mask, a couple of long sleeve shirts, leather jacket, gloves, couple pairs of pants, heavy blue jeans, two pairs of socks, and leather boots. And so I would have been killed if I hadn't been wearing that sort of stuff. And typically, if it would have been a nice day, I would have not been wearing a helmet or a jacket or gloves or any of that. And so, really, the only reason that I'm alive is because it was just, uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to ride a bike in the cold rain. Trust me. Um, if you get going 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and you've got pellets of rain hitting you in the face and in the arms, it hurts, like really, like stings like 10,000 bees stinging you. And also, it was cold, and so, it made sense for me to bundle up pretty good that day. I was packed pretty tight, and so I do still suffer. I've got some back problems and some nerve damage, but I'm not crippled by any means. I can still do a lot of the things that I used to be able to do, but in terms of well, let's just say I'm not going to be trying out for any Olympic teams or anything anytime soon, which I probably wouldn't have been doing before anyway. And luckily, my digits are still good, and so I can still play the piano and guitar and that sort of thing. So anyway, I don't know why I keep droning. Nobody cares about this sort of thing. I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but what I was getting at is that all of my videos are given out freely, and I wouldn't feel comfortable selling them because I feel like this is something that everybody needs to know. But on the other hand, if you feel that it's worth something, whether that is just a simple prayer, a comment, or a contribution, then send whatever you think it's worth. I think that sounds fair, and you don't have to do anything at all. I mean, you can just say thanks. That was a good video. I mean, that means a lot to me. Just say a prayer for me, or share the video on Facebook, or add it to one of your playlists. Just I can show you how. It's pretty easy, but set up a playlist and put videos that you like on the playlist and share them with your friends. That's one good way to get the truth out if you're not good with making videos. Um, but even that, like, even if you can just help one single person to look at this and consider it as a rational adult, it often has profound effects on people if they are intelligent enough, and it's really not a matter of intelligent, but if they are open-minded enough in order to break the programming that we've all been very much under for our entire lives. I'm going to plan on talking about that a little bit deeper. I think that everyone needs the truth and actually searches for it. And like water, it should be given out for free. But our culture has made this craving for truth impossible to fulfill because most people will refuse revelation of the great deception without so much as a single thought involved. And this is a pre programmed response which has been hardwired into our psyche since we were children. So I like to use analogies to try to, get certain points across that are often difficult to explain in, sensible, logical, real terms, but sometimes an analogy can get it where, a million paragraphs can't. Like, for example, does a bear shit in the woods? That's a great one. No, I'm kidding. Uh, Imagine a man walking through the desert, sunburned, and his skin peeling from his lips from thirst, and just he's about to die from dehydration. The guy's in bad shape, and you walk up to him with a cooler full of ice cold drinks, offer him whatever he wants freely. Most of the time, this dehydrated man will tell you off, spit on you, and keep on trucking through the sand, following the mirage, which is, of course, just atmospheric refraction, an illusion, or the globe in this analogy. So, the globe is an illusion. The truth is the cold water in this analogy. Once in a blue moon, you'll find a starving person in the desert who accepts the truth or accepts the free cold water, and their life is changed forever just from one sip of the ice cold, plain, simple truth that we've all been really yearning for our entire lives. But I believe we couldn't really put our finger on the problem, or we really didn't understand what was causing so much imbalance in our lives. To me, it makes a lot of sense now why, you know, people at large, myself and, particularly, even me, myself, people that I've spoken with, my friends, um, pretty much agree that it's a messed up old world that we've got here. But we've all sort of known something's wrong with the world, and just never could explain it, never could figure it out. Now, once you've made it out of the exit of insanity, which is this, heliocentric spinning spherical Earth model, subconsciously believing that you are spinning around on a giant ball in outer space, the world becomes a logical. It's like we look at it with new eyes, as if it's special, as it is. It's an awesome place. We look at things differently, objectively, and we don't just take people's word for everything. Not anymore, not as flat earthers, especially theoretical physicists in particular. And especially that one, what's the guy's name? Neil Tyson Chicken with the side of alfalfa grass. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about, but it's good to trust people, but it's also important to verify assumptions, question dogmas, and challenge any established theory based on piles of assumptions which are built on premises that are theoretical and can only be admitted for the sake of argument, yet never demonstrated or proven. Furthermore, it's not necessary, according to theoretical physics, to test these assumptions to see if they're, doable, to see if they are actually facts, to see if they are viable in reality, or conversely, to see if these assumptions and these pillars, which they sort of take for granted in the heliocentric insanity model, it's almost as if it's taboo to even question the validity of these assumptions. And we'll get into what the assumptions are, but off the top of my head, two major ones, which are game, set, match for the heliocentric model, are total lack of curvature and sphericity, and there's no axial rotation. Just for two basic physical things that we can, definitely prove, demonstrate, repeat, and this is all falsifiable um, science. That's what this is. This isn't just theoretical hyperbole that's designed to sort of jive with the way that the scientific minds of the time would like to steer the subconscious. And we'll get into that a little bit as well, the whole Copernican principle. Now, in terms of Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's good to trust people, but like I said, it's important to verify their assumptions and question those dogmas and challenge any established theory based on piles of assumptions and conjecture and theory, and none of this stuff is ever tested to confirm whether these are facts. Now, I'd like to see an actual fair debate on a level playing field in terms of scoring and moderation without silly rules like you cannot disprove the heliocentric model in this debate, which is a tactic that's been used by some pretty well known shills, at least as far as I'm concerned, like cognitive dissonance and those trolls, but also by John LeBond when he did a recent interview with Antonio Svats, which and I think Antonio did a pretty good job on the debate. I like Antonio; he's a friend. I just I think and Nathan Oakley did a good job, I believe as well, moderating. But the issue that I had with it is that while John LeBon had the luxury of arguing strictly in the negative. So it's as if John LeBon did not have to have a model in order to participate in this debate. It appeared as if Antonio was expected to have a working model with answers for everything in this debate, which is really the opposite of how it should have been conducted. Since the heliocentric model, in case you guys didn't know, but most people believe the heliocentric model. The heliocentric model is the champion model. It's the widely accepted version of reality. And so to have some sort of rules, and again, this was a rule that was sort of forced upon me when I debated Tim Osman and a couple other guys. They would not allow me to make one single point that disproves or falsifies or debunks the heliocentric model, and there are many proofs. But I think that it's ridiculous for a any debate, regarding the flat Earth versus sphere Earth, or whatever shape Earth you want to insert. But let's just say flat versus sphere. Since the spherical Earth version or model is the dominant model, then really, in truth, in order to win the debate, then the minority or the person arguing against the status quo or the accepted version of theoretical physics, all that person needs to do is debunk or falsify or even bring into question the whole thing beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt thing, to bring into question certain fundamental pillars which must be true in order for the heliocentric model to work. So, in other words, in this debate, the rules should be quite different because you see, there's a history of science. all of science has arrived at these conclusions in terms of the heliocentric model over hundreds and thousands of years. And who are we to question, the brilliant minds of all time? But and so that's the point. The point is that the heliocentric model has so many complex, bizarre, and very peculiar mechanisms to it that all must work, to an exact T, especially when you consider things like solar and lunar eclipses being totally predictable on cycles. That sort of thing is just really not favorable to a heliocentric model. Until you delve into a little bit, then it gets a little bit more sensible, but even the explanation for that is nonsensical. So that doesn't make any sense. I'll explain later, but um, I was just a little bit disappointed that John LeBon, someone whom I've respected, and I've done a couple shows with him. I think he's a decent guy, but I also think that he needs to sort of pick a side and decide, what his position is. You can only ride the middle of the road for so long. Um, Now, I think that John LeBon knows that if he comes out trying to claim that the Earth is a spinning sphere, which he does not do, that he's going to be, slaughtered. There is no debate. I mean, if you could actually put together a fair, balanced debate with real moderators, etc., there is no debate. This is something that can be demonstrated, proven, time and time again. There's no need to get into theoretical, hypothetical ideas in order to make this whole flat Earth reality work. It just is what it is, and we're all very keen observers. We all have been for our entire lives, and so if we can find, and we've found many, but if we can find even one single issue or inconsistency or fallacy, falsity in the heliocentric model, then there is no debate to be had. Because honestly, we, and I mean, like, I say the scientific community because really anybody that follows the scientific method is a scientist. Anyone with integrity who wants to get closer to the truth, that's a scientist. So you don't have to be on some board, or you don't need any sort of degree to be a scientist technically. But I think it's really important for the scientific community, or the truth in science movement, or the flat earth movement, whatever you want to call it. I think it's our responsibility to point out that the burden of proof is not on us. It is not up to us to prove or disprove every last iota of theory involving the heliocentric model. Just to give you a basic example of this, what goes up must come down. That is an observation that is not argued. Um, Obviously, if you drop a brick on your foot, it's going to land down on your foot. If you jump off a building, you're going to land on the ground. And if an apple, is loosed from a tree, it's going to fall towards the ground. That's, basic Earth physics. I mean, that's a law of physics. What goes up must come down, unless you're talking about, helium balloons, and eventually I guess they pop and come down, but they do sort of raise as opposed to fall. The point is the observation, or the law of physics, what goes up must come down, isn't argued. What's argued is the cause of this. And the funny thing is that what goes up must come down isn't even possible on a spinning sphere. let alone proof of a spinning sphere or exclusive to a spinning sphere, especially stuck to the side at the equator, which is, whew, we'll get into that in a little while. But even basic, repeatable observations, which are doable by very small children, can prove that the Earth is stationary and that it's a plane. So uh, that's all we need to prove. We don't need to go on, explaining anomalies with the southern stars, and we don't need to go on explaining, well, how does a sidereal day work versus a solar day? And I mean, a lot of this stuff has been explained. Circumnavigation being a big one. I still get lots of comments from people who claim that there isn't a flat Earth explanation for the masts of ships appearing, over the horizon prior to the hull of the ship, as observed by Christopher Columbus, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. However, that claim has been fully debunked. The people that make these claims are just regurgitating the same old stuff that we're all familiar with, as if we never paid attention in school. Um, I can tell you, most flat earthers are very intelligent, because you really have to have a firm understanding of the heliocentric model in order to abandon the heliocentric model for something that makes much more sense and is actually, you can prove it. It's demonstrable. So again, since the heliocentric model is the undisputed champion of science, then John LeBon, as well as Tim Osmond and his gaggle of trolls, are not, they can't make up the rules as you go along. Um, you know, I was mentioning earlier, we flat earthers have been at this for a couple years in the modern sense, and so we really have a lot of work cut out for us. But we are in a unique position to where we have a major advantage over the heliocentric team, and they know it, and that's why they appear to be going to such great lengths to discredit this whole entire truth and science movement, or to discredit us people who are flat earthers, because they know that if we can show, which has been shown, but if we can show lack of curvature over 100 miles of standing water or even oceans, or if we can show lack of axial rotation, if we can show the Earth to be stationary, then there is no argument to be had. All of the further theory, including the Milky Way galaxy and the other galaxies in the so-called universe and the Big Bang, all of that stuff just becomes science fiction. It becomes philosophy that will one day be called mythology, I believe. It will take some time, because they've got a whole bunch of people snowed on this, but eventually, 50 years from now, maybe less, maybe we can get it done quicker, maybe five would be great. But they're going to be teaching in the history books, and can you believe just 7 years ago, the entire world believed we live stuck to the side of a spinning sphere, and they allowed a private group of bankers to issue their currency instead of their government, as constitutionally guaranteed, and basically allowed the sovereign, greatest nation on the face of the earth, which is America, the largest, most diverse nation ever. Um, they've turned it into a huge scam factory. They've taken away our manufacturing jobs, ship those overseas. You've got inflation, so the value of the dollar continues to decline while the average wage remains essentially stagnant. And so, I know this sort of seems like I'm off on a tangent, but really all of this is very much interconnected. So, with the heliocentric model being the pinnacle of accurate mathematics and physics, which is figured out to the millionth decimal, thanks to people like Newton and so on, Cavendish, and all the other scientism pontificates. The heliocentric model is actually the reigning champion, the belief system held by all modern cultures and scientists. So to have a rule in such a debate, you cannot disprove the heliocentric model in this debate. It's ridiculous because, in fact, um, that's totally the opposite of the truth. If we prove or disprove, rather, one single premise or assumption cleverly woven into the heliocentric model, then the debate is over. Game, set, match, because the heliocentric model has shown to be impotent. Now, on the other hand, um, you can have all sorts of arguments against flat Earth, but it's all irrelevant. Whether your argument has to do with the summer solstices in the different poles, or circumnavigation, or whatever the case may be, all of those alleged proofs are rendered irrelevant until you can show proof of overall curvature of the face of the Earth and axial rotation, for starters. And there's a million other things that you're going to have to deal with after that. But just those two things alone, if we can, and we have, and we'll continue doing it. But if we can continue debunking those two things, which is curvature and rotation of the, upon the Earth's axis, then there is no debate. The heliocentric team has no position, and so it's a very clever tactic. And I'm very surprised that John LeBon would try to set that. And I'm not sure who set those rules, but it seemed like John LeBon may have had something to do with that rule. Seems like his sort of language, but maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, forgive me. But to try to put this in analogy off the top of my head, if you were a juror in a murder trial and a guy is on the stand for murder, and you've got some circumstantial evidence and a very convincing, compelling case from the prosecutor or the person that's trying to, get the guy put in jail. But then the defense attorney shows conclusive proof that the man was not even in the same country during the time of the murder. And let's just say it's 100% legit, verified proof that he wasn't even in the same country. Then does that man need to continue to prove that he was also not in the state where the murder occurred? And does he need to continue having talks about the murder weapon? I mean, no. Any real court of law is going to dismiss such a case. There's no possible way that any judge or jury would continue even entertaining a theory that this guy murdered someone, in, say, the state of Texas, when he was clearly in, say, the south of France when the murder occurred. Then it's irrelevant to continue with any further line of inquiry down that theory, because all you're doing is wasting everyone's time and letting the real murderer get further and further away. So, I hope that analogy makes sense. And I sort of did that. It probably seemed choppy because I tried to keep that congruent through about six different interruptions. So I'm going to go put the cone on my dog's head real quick. Poor Boo Boo. And I'll be right back. I'm going to cut in and out of this as quickly as possible. So just. Okay, so now that my dog has her cone on her head so she can't chew her legs and her tail. Oh yes, John Levon. Well, just to finish up, with that little conversation, I think Antonio did a pretty good job in the debate. However, I think that the rules of the debate were bass backwards. I think that first of all, what must be done in order to get this truth out is first and foremost is to falsify the heliocentric model. That's the only way that you're gonna get people to start looking at this. Now, whether it's banana shaped.
End of that, my liege, is how we know the Earth to be banana-shaped.
This new learning amazes me, Sir Bedivere. Explain again how sheep's bladders may be employed to prevent earthquakes.
Oh, certainly, sir.
Or a concave sphere, or an oblate spheroid, or a flat Earth, or a slightly concave Earth, or whatever the case is. We need to first figure out the basics. And the basics, again, I've mentioned this a few times already, but the basics is there curvature to the overall surface of the Earth, especially over large distances of water, which would always maintain their level. Water always maintains its level, especially over long stretches of a allegedly gravitical space-time warpageal curvature. Um, at any point, um, we can continue proving flat Earth, because there's a ton of evidence for it, but we don't need to continue proving flat Earth. But instead, I think we should come together as a scientific community to begin seeking real answers to the important questions. So, once we've proven zero curvature over 60 miles of standing water or 100 miles of standing water, and once we've proven zero axial rotation of the world, and by the way, both of these have been shown. I mean, these are facts. There is no curvature, and the world isn't spinning. Then the entire heliocentric team must fold or drastically alter their model, which is never going to happen. I mean, each little intricate working mechanism of the heliocentric model must be perfectly, precisely, exactly the way that they say it is. Otherwise, they don't have a model because, again, theirs is very complicated with theoretical gravity and theoretical space-time and theoretical dark matter and theoretical suns that are atomic fusion, if I've got that right. Um, but all of this theoretical hyperbole aside, without axial rotation and without curvature, then the heliocentric team must fold, and they lose the debate by default because they don't have a model. So that was very slick, and it seems like it is a commonly used tactics of people who don't want to actually get this topic discussed in a real mainstream sense. Again, if the heliocentric model is falsified, then we must continue the process to better understand the alternative models, such as the flat Earth, and develop a working model. But as soon as the world is proven as not a spinning sphere, then the entire debate changes from, is it a sphere or is it a plane, to, okay, it's obviously not a spinning sphere, so what sort of plane is it? So again, any debate with a rule stating you're not allowed to disprove the heliocentric model, then it's not a scientific debate, but instead, and no offense to any of the guests, Nathan Oakley, Antonio, and John LeBon. I'm sorry, but that was sort of a dog and pony show, which never adequately addressed the proper way to conduct a scientific debate, which really needs to happen. But the debate needs to entail one's ability to prove a point, rebut that point, show evidence for their model, and physical evidence, not theoretical, ramblings or made up stuff that might, be or could be or mathematically possibly could be, but actual physical evidence. The debate changes. So, and again, instead of this dog and pony show, which never adequately shows the truth, because most of the world has been hypnotically programmed to believe the utterly preposterous is factual. So, it's imperative that we first disprove the heliocentric model in any debate as the very first step towards the truth. The ball earthers must show curvature first, then prove axial rotation second, just for starters. Otherwise, they are equivalent to a dead fish in any debate and should be laughed off the room until they can show evidence for these two things. Curvature doesn't exist, axial rotation doesn't exist, and these would be extremely easy to prove if they were indeed, true features or, interworking mechanisms of our world. So, without curvature, without axial rotation, what exactly are we left with as an option? A spinning globe, I mean, I hate to remind you guys this, must have curvature and axial rotation, not to mention the theoretically non existing solar and galactic velocities. Yet these traits, none of these belong to the Earth. Now, I typically trust people or trust a person until they give me a reason not to trust them. If we operate the other way around, then we're possibly missing out on a lot of potentially really important relationships and conversation or bonding or new lines of thought that we may never have thought of on our own. Although the world has become kind of a mad place and it is hard to trust people, I still tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think if we, en masse operated, sort of the other way around in terms of trusting people first until they give us a reason not to trust them, then we're missing out on a lot of really important relationships and conversations or bonding. And there are a lot of quacks out there, and there are tons of really poor sources of misinformation being circulated across the internet covering a variety of topics, flat earth obviously notwithstanding. Now, I must agree with Mr. Matt Powerboy that the lunatic fringe of flat earth appears to get the best rankings, while the sensible, logical voices make really great vids in many cases, and observations are buried towards the bottom of page 15 of a flat earth search result. So I do agree with Matt Powerland in some regards that I think that there may be a bit of favoritism in terms of search results or how your videos are listed as recommended, as next to watch. I used to do like Google or YouTube searches for flat Earth and watch a line of really interesting original videos come up, and I'd often be really happy with the results and watch some really great stuff and learn some new things and look at different results of different experiments and man, I've really gotten addicted to watching high altitude weather balloon footage. It's just awesome. But I've often found that when I search for flat Earth videos, I'll find reposts of some stuff that wasn't all that great 7 months ago when it was originally posted. Then, of course, a bunch of stuff about the dome in the sky and apparition fishbowl, pages and pages of Mark Sargent. No offense to Mark, but I just so happen to disagree with him on many levels. Although we still have common ground in terms of the stationary plane Earth, and some extremely bizarre characters coming out with the tabloid style stories that they are reptilians from the future and the earth is flat. I just hate to see this topic go into the sort of tabloid genre, which is sort of where I see it heading if we keep up with pseudoscience. And I'm sorry to say, I mean, I know this makes a lot of people mad, but I don't think there's any sort of physical dome above the sky. I don't think that and there may be, but I don't think there's any sort of physical boundary to the breadth and scope of the world. I think that there certainly is a semi-physical boundary to the apparent path of the moon and the sun, throughout the seasons. But beyond that, I think that there may be much, much more land out there, and I won't necessarily say there's direct evidence for this, but I will say that there is equal, if not more so, evidence for an extended plane than a Truman Show enclosed dome system, so to speak, which has been sort of propagandized and repeated by, some pretty high profile flat earthers, which I think is a disservice to the truth and science movement, because if you start inserting things like, well, a glass dome in the sky that is fastened to the ground somewhere south of the Antarctic, then that sort of thing is really easy to falsify. Although I don't think that there's anything of the sort in reality. I think that the stars or the heavenly bodies are on an astral plane, and the laws of perspective make them appear to drop nearer towards the horizon as distance is gained from you, the observer. And any dome-shaped tendency to our world is probably caused by an electromagnetic vortex emanating from the center, spreading out in all directions towards the south in an AE sort of matrix. So, like if you've got the vortex in the center north coming out in all directions to the south, if you sort of flip that this way, you'd be looking at like a donut hole, like, and then a donut. But we all know what a toroidal shape is. I'll try to throw up a diagram or an animation, but um, I think if there's any sort of dome-shaped tendency to the upper atmosphere, then it would be because of such electromagnetic fields or an electromagnetic vortex that would necessarily create a toroidal shape electromagnetic field surrounding the Earth. And this, to me, is very much in line with the recently imaged ionized plasma tubes found in the lower magnetosphere running meridianally, so north to south. So, anyways, I just really hate to see such an important truth movement become confused and conflicted by the typical strategy used by the ancient manipulators of nations who have sort of gotten this down to a science. Swaying the opinions and preferences of the masses by incremental hypnotic suggestion and repetition, 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 as well as subliminal programming, which taps into our primal desires and instincts on a subconscious level in order to form fight or flight responses, fear, positive associations with the symbols and images in our mind's eye, ultimately to manipulate our understanding of reality and to set up psychological controls or boundaries for which we are to operate within, as well as falsities which are permanent yet are reinforced by the reward and punishment system of our fascist, lyrical society and government. If you adhere to any, cosmological system without question, you get rewarded. If you question the system and find that it's an insidious scam, then you get punished. So we're already divided in this respect, as most people don't want to be lumped into the conspiracy theory, tinfoiler hat crowd. Most people want to fit in with the majority of the herd and will parrot their leaders or idols or those whom they feel are much more intelligent or eligible to speak on a topic than themselves. And most people have handed over their decision making and thinking process to the state and federal governments in its many facets and methods of control and influence. Now, being the true minority in the world, we flat earthers must be careful not to fall prey to further division, lest we be broken like twigs, one by one. The fascists certainly have one thing correct, which is essentially their entire motto and model. Stick together, stand strongly together, and we have strength. Stand divided, and we're weak. The literal symbol of this ideology, this fascist ideology, is the fasci. It's a bundle of twigs with a cutting blade at the tip, sort of like an axe. And this symbology of the fasci contains, their motto and their model for control and power. So they make it clear that they get their power by sticking together. If you conquer a nation or a village, you either kill the ones that are against your cause or will continue fighting, or you fold ones who are young enough or don't have much fight in them. You fold them into your order, which is sort of how the whole feudal system has worked, over there in the wild, wild Europe for God knows how long. But really, being the minority, we flat earthers mustn't fall prey to further division, lest we be broken like twigs, one by one. And, again, I hate to sound like a fascist, but they do have a point, and so it's important to sort of learn from, successful models, especially when, such a major truth is at stake here. Now, similar to the fasci, you've got the pyramid, which it's similar in a sense that it is another model and another motto for an empirical, hierarchy. However, the pyramid shows the power being held by a small group of elite at the top, gradually increasing in size and number of people towards the bottom, where the cultural position of each layer wanes or gets, your status gets less and less as you get lower on the pyramid, while the number of people in that section towards the top, that would be like the royal class. They receive all the benefits from the essentially slave labor and well, manipulation of the masses using everything from propaganda to whips and chains. But in any case, fascism or corporatism, like a pyramid scheme, are basically combined to form the U.S. government for all intents and purposes, or at least they are the puppet masters behind the so-called representatives of the U.S. government. And it's the design for the New World Order government, which will be ushered into existence when the US dollar falls and the new reserve currency is issued. Possibly the Amero, possibly something else. And we might see a completely different future unfold if we, the people, act fast and act with tact and respect and truth. I think a major key to getting this truth out is to stick together. Um, and I don't just mean, on social media and that kind of thing, which is great. But what I mean is to, like, let's try to work out our differences like adults and not allow agent provocateurs, disinfo agents, or just simply misinformed parrots talking about the globe or the dome as if they're proven facts or staple ingredients to the model of the world, or really any sort of propaganda designed to drive wedges between our family and truth. We've certainly got common ground, pun intended. Even if we disagree on certain elements of this, we must remain unified in order to present this great revelation to the world, whether they like it or not. I mean, the truth has to be told. So I hope that we, as a community of people who are really in the same boat. I mean, everybody's in the same boat, but especially us flat earthers. Um, if we can focus on the basic stuff that we all agree on, we can work out our differences later using science, experimentation, not conjecture or argument, but um, we really can come together and make a bigger impact as a single unit as opposed to all of these, sort of sparsely divided twigs sticking out of the sand, which will, easily be mowed over by a weed whacker or a stiff wind. On the other hand, if we can come together, again, not to sound like a fascist, it's just sort of an analogy, but if we can come together and stand strong together, then we actually have a chance to make some big changes, and I think that this is going to happen. I'll do my best to keep it going until the day that I die. Well, enough said about that, and much like my good friend Jaron says, just be nice to each other and don't lie to each other. Pretty simple, but think of what would happen if everyone decided to actually do that. Everyone in the world for a week, for real. If everyone in the world was completely honest and just nice for a week, I think it would make an excellent movie. But we simply couldn't have Jim Carrey in it unless perhaps just a bit part where he admits he's the devil.
No, you might as well stop. It will never be enough. I personally love Halloween. Everyone dresses up in crazy outfits and acts insane. For this Halloween, I've decided to be a bit of a hybrid. I call this Helvis. Now, we all know that Helvis went to heaven. That's easy enough to prove.
Well, he
Now,
goes.
President Obama makes a public announcement at a large press conference that his wife's a man and his mom was possibly a Photoshop picture of Paul McCartney from the Beatles. The chairperson of the Federal Reserve calls a press conference to tell the American people, we've been fucking you with no lube for 103 years. And you silly people have allowed us to do it without even trying to stop us. I just think it would be hilarious if everyone in the world were brutally honest about everything for a single week. Oh, and for the whole week, everyone was also nice to each other. I think I mentioned that. I guess it'll probably never happen 100%, but at least we can take steps to share the truth and love each other. And while we can only directly control our own actions, we can set by example that while we may disagree on certain things, we still must be honest and civil to one another because we're all on the same team, we're all part of the same family, and that's glober or flatter or concaver or whatever or um, and another point too is this supersedes race, creed, color. Flat Earth, much like music, is interpreted by all people the same way. So that's really I really do see this as a major unifying thing, and I want to quickly mention I'm sort of ad libbing this, so the 6 hour video might turn into a 10 hour video. Sorry guys, but this isn't just like music is heard by everybody the same. It doesn't matter where you grew up. The truth, and as long as it's explained to you in your language so you understand it, is understood equally by everybody, I think. Now, I think in the Western culture, it's a little bit more difficult to let go of our very firmly held belief in a sort of cosmos, infinite space, heliocentric cosmology, due to multi generational, long term psychological operation on all of us, our parents, our grandparents, maybe even long since then. Um, I mean, just for reference, when Robotham wrote Zetetic in 1865, and this, I'm not going to put anything out about that book, I'm just making a point, was that even in 1865, people were still arguing this topic. It's not like it was agreed. That's one of the common claims you hear is that M&M's. Anybody want some? That's the common claim that you hear is that this whole flat Earth, round Earth thing has been settled for 500 years, which that is in fact not true because people have been debating this very recently, much more recently than that, and so just Zetetic alone is a testament that debunks the silly argument that people have known that the Earth is a spinning globe for over 500 years, and there you have it. So that was a rather long pre-introduction to the video. So let's kick off the main portion of the introduction. No, I'm just kidding. The main portion of the video with the typical promise of plain honesty, and upon my honor, I would never willfully deceive or mislead anyone. Everything that I share, if I tell you it's a proof, then based on my observation, experimentation, and logic, then it's a proof. If something is theoretical, then I will tell you that it's theoretical. Um, and I don't see any shame in going into a sort of a new realm of theoretical physics that is very, very young and exciting, I think. So that should be a lot of fun for many years to come. It really is important to me that y'all out there know that I would personally, and I know most of you, most of my subscribers out there sort of know me, sort of know that, or at least I hope that you know that I have some integrity. The best way I can put this is, I just vouch and promise to anyone that's looking at this topic seriously, and you really are wanting to understand the truth and you have your doubts and you have your questions, I just want to first off start off by telling you that I would never willfully deceive anyone. I have unwillfully deceived people for the majority of my life. Since since I was a very small child, I've been very interested in the spinning spherical Earth and the whole heliocentric model. And from what I sort of remember and from what I've been told, I was not exactly a an instant believer in the spinning sphere Earth beneath my feet. And for pretty obvious reasons. I mean, it's if you were to be born into this world fresh, and you were, you know, young enough so that you couldn't argue with your parents, but old enough so that you could sort of logic and reason. Um, I remember having issues with this because actually my father wanted to teach me the whole heliocentric, galactic, Big Bang universe theory uh, well before I went into kindergarten. And so, besides the Bible, one of the books I remember being read, and my mom read me your typical bedtime stories and such, but one of the books that I remember being read, or actually reading myself when I was very young, maybe 5 or 6, was Carl Sagan's Cosmos, which I think there is a lot to learn in that book. Carl Sagan was obviously no dummy, but either he was, just tricked about this whole infinite space, spherical Earth, galactic gravitic model, just like everyone else, or perhaps, there's a chance that he was in on the hoax, but I don't know. He was pretty highly paid and highly esteemed. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's done all the research and can tell you, whether he was a Mason or what lodge of the OTO he belonged to and his rank and, all that jazz. And I don't want to get too deep into all that. But Carl Sagan was, he was a smart philosopher, theoretical physicist, and he did have what I think are some pretty good ways of explaining things that are complex subjects in simplex terms. So, I do give him kudos and credit for that, although um, obviously I disagree with the late Carl Sagan on just about everything that is sort of preached as gospel in the Cosmos books and series. So, whether Carl Sagan willfully deceived people in terms of the spinning sphere Earth, or whether he was just an average person who, made it through college, decided to become a theoretical astrophysicist, and parroted the most, the deepest roots of nonsensical theoretical physics there are, which means you take a brilliant mind and you lead them down a rabbit hole of insanity as their career path. I think that's been one of the biggest problems as well with our country is that um, most really smart people are more concerned with money than finding out the truth. And the people that are concerned with finding out the truth are distracted by the trappings of this world, of course, but they are also brainwashed at a very young age into being completely subjective observers as opposed to objective observers, meaning there is an extreme bias or bent or prejudice or piles and piles of assumptions that go into any theoretical physicist in a common modern sense. Uh, all of the stuff that we're about to go over that they must swallow and accept as 100% perfectly factual in order for their theoretical model to work is just it's just insane.
What is
We
gravity?
have no idea. Okay, next question. No, here's the
Wow.
difference. We can describe gravity. We can
Okay.
say what it does to other things. We can We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
So
It
did
is.
I accidentally ask a deeper question than I meant to?
Yeah, no, you were meant to ask deep questions
Apparently I was.
in life. So,
And when you're aware of this topic and when you're awake to this topic, it can be frustrating. I mean, I've got I talk to a lot of people who are just really having a tough time with this. Not not just monetarily, financially. I mean, that is the case a lot of the time, but well, most of the time. But in terms of family situations, I know a couple of situations, several situations where this is sort of like tearing families apart. And to me, this is, it's a shame because all we're dealing with here is simple scientific discussion. It's been going on for all of time, and for some reason, it's as if our culture frowns upon dissension or debate or discussion of any sort. It's almost as if the most important thing, besides making sure the richest corporations in the world get a little bit more rich next year than they did last year. I mean, that's the most important thing. Everything else is secondary, including like all life of all animals on Earth. I mean, that's nowhere near as important as the profits of the Fortune 500 companies. The point to this whole diatribe here is my promise to you, the viewer, whether you're a new viewer or a subscriber, or to everybody, that I would never, I don't have any reason to lie. I've I got hit by a car in October of 2014, and it totally changed my life for the worst, but it put me in a position, say that 10 times fast, but it put me in a position to where I had some time on my hands, so to speak, and I was able to follow certain links that I otherwise probably would have never followed. And pretty quickly, after consider doing a lot of thinking, some experimentation, and just basic logic, I pretty quickly, within a week, maybe less than that, came to the conclusion, and there was periods of doubt, of course, but came to the conclusion, that indisputable conclusion that I will never back down from, which is the Earth is not a spinning globe. So if it hadn't been for certain events, which might not seem all that pleasant at the time, can end up putting you on a path that you otherwise wouldn't have been on. So um, yeah, everything has a reason, but I realize there's plenty of people out there who have never met me. You don't know me personally. You probably think I'm some sort of deceptive guru, stalking and preying on weak minded individuals based on something they've heard about me or heard about Flat Earth, or plenty of other globe Earth skeptics for that matter could apply. Although we would probably become great friends if given a chance. But I know that there's a lot of people who have heard about me and hate me because of what I stand for, even though they probably have not listened to many of the proofs and arguments which I've tried to sort of put together in a variety of combinations so as to really show in as many ways as possible, from orbital mechanics being physically impossible all the way down to the lack of curvature, uh, completely demolishing the belief that I held for many years, which is the Big Bang, gravitic, galactic, heliocentric sort of model. Um, So those of you that really hate me and couldn't care if I or any other ushers of truth or the ushers of revelation, you could care less if all of us died this instant. Um, group of people, I pray for you. I hope that you are able to open your eyes and uh, do the research and think about this logically and do some experiments and come to your own conclusions, but don't dismiss this topic offhand because you think it's stupid or somebody told you it was stupid. That's the reason why I originally looked into it, is because somebody told me about it and that it was stupid. So of course I went in to debunk it. That's that's what I went in to do, and within a week I made my first flat Earth video. The Nazis of NASA in the Infinite Plane. Um, and it's not my best video, but it certainly is my most popular video because I touch on a lot of subjects, and although uh, my editing skills have improved since then, I spent a lot of time on it, and so I think at the end of the day, it turned, I got my point across. I borrowed a few clips from Eric Dubay and Matt Boylan Powerlin, and so I just wanted to, at that point, I just wanted to show my vantage point on this, which included, of course, the Operation Paperclip involvement, as well as several other proofs that I've sort of been pondering my entire life, just never put things together to conclude that the Earth isn't a spinning globe. Um, at any rate, I pray for all of you people, including the ones who could care less if I died tomorrow. I pray for you, and I pray that you ultimately open your eyes and see the truth. And by the way, what do you call a large group of people? I mean, other than a crowd, that seems too general a term. You know how a bunch of birds are a flock, but a bunch of geese are a gaggle? Baboons are a congress, which is deliciously ironic and fitting. But what do you call a group of people, regular people, other than a crowd? I mean, I guess there's different group names, but I suppose it ultimately depends on what type of people they are. Morally or ethically, what type of people are we talking about here? And I'm not talking about race or color, but if you placed a thousand truly evil people, selfish psychopaths, let's say the Globeheads, just kidding, into a city together, it would be called Washington, D.C. No, just kidding. So you place a thousand evil fuckers in City A and a thousand normal, caring, innocent, loving, typical, friendly people in a separate City B, and allow each mini civilization to thrive for some time. It's irrelevant, 10 years, whatever. Now, of course, they would have different names for their land. So, like, I don't know, Floridian and Californian. So, that's only superficial based on location. It has nothing to do with the person's, behavioral patterns or their soul or their logical understanding of nature. You would probably have to come up with different names for the two groups because evil and ignorance breed evil and ignorance, um, while love and forgiveness breeds the same, love and forgiveness. So, like a flock of birds or a gaggle of geese, the evil civilization would be categorized as a different breed of human than the civilization built on love and forgiveness, I think. You'd have two different types of people based on the environments which they grew up in. Scientists would call this gene expression. So, like if you took 10,000 identical people into one, situation, and 10,000 identical people, identical respective to one another, this idea of gene expression would potentially change a person physically as well as mentally based on the environment which they grow up in. And there is, some science behind this gene expression. So you may wind up with several, a couple different types of people. For example, not to liken human beings to swine. That's not the point of this, but a lot of people don't know that wild boar are similar in genetics to your domesticated pig. The ones that go oink oink and you can pet them on the head and they're real nice. But a wild boar, they'll like attack you and stick a tusk through your face. um, well, if you take in a wild boar, or let's just do it the other way around. Let's say you have a prize-winning hog, a big old pig, and it gets loose and has to live out in the wild for a while, and it will fairly quickly, like fairly quickly, change not just its personality in terms of it will become an aggressive hunter, but it will also start to grow big, patches of fur, and it'll put on weight, and its actual bone structure will change. Uh, the way that it carries itself, the way that it acts, the way that it looks, everything. It turns into a different sort of pig. That's why a wild boar, if you play many role-playing games, like medieval role-playing games, wild boar are usually pretty hard to kill. But anyway, the point is that gene expression, I think, is a big part of the misunderstanding involved with Darwin's theory of evolution. Because although, you've got similar species throughout the world, and you've got different variances of these species, and to me, uh, the gene expression is not going to change, and there is no fossil record for this ever occurring, so it's not just like I'm thinking this, but since there is no change, there's only minor changes in gene expression, which give us a wide variety of different species and different types of animals. Uh, but I think that was a big confusion with evolution. I think what was the Galapagos Islands, if I'm not mistaken, was cut off and was under specific conditions sort of isolated from the rest of the world for a long time. And so things that you could say evolved, but the creatures that were there just due to the environment, there was a different gene expression, right? And so to me, without any proof of evolution in the fossil record, it's been fairly well debunked. Not to mention the links that they've gone to insert, missing links into textbooks falsely. The Peltdown Man is a prime example. That was a hoax. Other examples where they supposedly find, a single tooth and say that they found the missing link. So that's scientism for you, right? Oh, and I think that they also built a wife based on the single tooth as well, and they were very accurate representations of the actual beings, the actual missing links. Joking, but anyway, try to get back on track here really quick. Sorry. So anyway, if we have to label the two groups of people that we mentioned earlier, although we don't have such a nice and neat 10,000 here, 10,000 there separated, we've sort of got everybody meshed up together with the richest that don't necessarily have to rub elbows with the poorest, and the poorest who are constantly working all day long so they don't have any other time to do anything else except for pay bills. But closest thing that we have to this sort of one label and the other would be government or citizen. The government entails everything from the military to obviously the politicians, and then of course you got the federal school systems, and then you've got stuff that's sort of benign, like the U.S. Postal Service. Although I believe that they do, sort of scan through your mail and that sort of thing. I don't know. You've got public services such as the police forces who love to shoot people for no reason, and then they get a couple weeks off with pay. Um, and then you've got false flag operations like Sandy Hook, which means we need more police officers to make sure that whatever is going to be accomplished by having more police officers. Oh, and make sure that they can give us a precedent to get rid of our guns. Just yet another precedent to get rid of our guns. Good old Adam Lanza and the Batman shooter, and now the Bataclan shooting over in Paris with the Eagles of Death and all that good stuff. Um, I see this as a coordinated effort to disarm the population at large, to prevent us from having the capability of defending ourselves against a tyrannical government when the time comes. Now that everybody says, it's upon us, it's upon us. Yes, Revelation is unfolding, I believe, but I don't think that anything necessarily terrible is upon us, and until we let them, you know, let all their plans come to fruition. And the only way that that can happen is if we stand by idly and allow it, because they being the enemy, being, not necessarily the government is the enemy, but there are, for all intents and purposes, uh, anti-human or anti-everybody else but them, um, elite secret societies in this world who are bent on perpetuating their never ending wealth while ensuring that we and our family lineages are scattered to the winds, much like the peasant class or serfdom class of the ancient times. So we may not feel that that's the way this country is going, but if we don't stop and change certain things, and if I haven't mentioned it yet, I'll keep mentioning it. The Federal Reserve, the CIA, and the IRS, just for starters. Until we get rid of those, then there's no sense in even talking about how to solve our financial problems. It's literally beyond the realm of possibility to talk about. So while the government would be the evil, ignorant lawmakers who are the minority yet hold the power in our upside down world, um, and the citizens would be the majority group who ought to be telling the government what to do or else. Yet it's inverted to where we have a situation where all the power and authority appears to be handed over to the psychotic, anti human, ultra capitalist, corporate fascist, military industrial complex government ruled by totally uh, inhumane people who are not concerned with anything but their own personal gain and that of their uh, cohorts. I think this is obvious. It should be obvious to everyone, but it can really be nailed home with certain revelations. Uh, the federal bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, certainly being one of them. The Earth being a stationary plane couldn't possibly. I don't see anything that could possibly be more life changing in that respect. That when you've come to this conclusion, you know for a fact that the government, which most of us have always trusted, because they're supposedly us, they supposedly represent us. The last, you know, 20 presidents have been multi-millionaires, right? Oh, except Jimmy Carter, even though he was backed by one of the Rothschilds or Rockefellers. But yeah, they're sure representative of the average Joe, all right. Uh, no. Anyway, at the end of the day, we have a situation where all the power and authority appears to be handed over to the psychotic, anti human, ultra capitalist, corporate fascist government ruled by the military industrial complex and private anonymous banks. Now, our forebears apparently signed away these rights freely, or at least this was done covertly behind their backs. Well, I don't know about you, but I wasn't around in 1912 when the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law secretly on Jackal Island, Georgia, during the Christmas break, no less, in the middle of the night, in a creepy castle where only a handful of Freemasonic uh, representatives, so to speak, beholden to the so called worshipful master of the lodge. For all intents and purposes, it was either Rothschild or he was represented that day at the dastardly meeting on Jekyll Island by none other than J.P. Morgan. I gotta tell you, that guy J.P. Morgan just keeps popping up all over the place. He created VIP guest lists for the Titanic voyage. He promoted Thomas Edison and helped to sabotage Nikola Tesla in order to monetize electricity, which Tesla wanted it to be free for all, yet we're still paying out the butt for electricity to this day. To Tesla, that was sort of like monetizing the air you breathe. But J.P. Morgan certainly had his plump little fingers in many pies. But he was, after all, a mere underling to the hidden hand that has controlled nations throughout history and manipulated civilizations to murder brother against brother. And they're continuing their typical cultural manipulation. However, the very cornerstone of their deception, upon which all of their plans have been laid, is being revealed as promised. Now, it's our duty as Christians and as flat earthers or globo skeptics to point out the audacity of these terrible, greedy people who illegally crafted and executed plans which have, for the last 102 years, slowly robbed our currency of all its value. The madness of all this becomes hilarious when you get past the anger and when you fully understand what occurred and how this all works. But more importantly, their plan actually worked and continues to work, holding every man, woman, and child, and even children who won't be born for 20 years, as debt slaves or as collateral for a loan from a private group of banks to governments. That's about as awful as you can get. I can assure you that under our current system of rule, which was hotly contested by John F. Kennedy, and obviously the reason why he was killed, um, everybody in the world is affected by this scam. And everybody in the future will be affected by this scam unless we change the course of our maniacal, plutocratic government that is so far out of touch with reality. It's a wonder they can find their way to work in the morning. I suppose that's why they have private drivers, of course. It's far beyond belief that we continue to allow for this scam to feast on the wealth and the value of our currency. But most of the so called representatives are either oblivious to this domestic enemy, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, or they're working for them, they're in on it. So, in most cases, the Federal Reserve is able to do whatever it wants. However, just as a handful of sneaky Freemasonic congressmen can write the Federal Reserve Act into law, I think that we, the people, the hundreds of millions of us, have the right and the moral imperative duty to impeach a government that is so out of control and out of touch with reality and out of touch with what needs to happen with our country in order for us to survive. Is what we need to do is we need to create a representative government. It's really a requirement that we do this, or else the nation will destroy itself from within. While the majority of our military is spread across the world so thinly, and the cost of sustaining military presence worldwide is not only ridiculous, it's against our moral code as a nation. It's a wasteful, and our military should be at home to protect us against any threats which may occur. Now, I don't think our military should be attacking innocent sovereign countries. One big glaring example would be Iraq after 9/11. For no reason, I might add. However, there's just too much money in war, and a lot of very large corporations would lose revenue or increased growth in revenue next year if we didn't have a constant conflict somewhere in the world or another. You gotta have some place to drop those very expensive bombs paid for by you and me, the US taxpayer, and it's okayed by us, the American people. Now, if that smart bomb happens to land on a hospital full of innocent people, it's collateral damage, according to the military. Question the government or have a peaceful protest, and that's now defined as being a terrorist, according to the new laws under the likes of the Patriot Act. The wars waged by Mystery Babylon America cost trillions of dollars, enough to enrich the world or the nation many times over, and fund huge projects to feed and house homeless people, for example, find alternative sources for energy which already exist. So, in other words, just implement alternative sources for energy. Since our addiction to the petroleum business is obviously not a great idea, and it's probably a good idea to get away from the petrodollar, although we've sort of screwed the pooch on that one and we've tied our money with a worthless bit of goo that comes out of the ground. It may have some worth, but in the next 20 years it'll be totally worthless unless we let the Rothschilds and the big oil companies to continue with the status quo, which I think is impossible. I think too many people are waking up to what's going on, and when enough people see the big picture, a lot of things are going to change. We just have to really get this out into the realm of public discussion. Social media is great, but again, it has its limitations. So it'll only take you so far. Now, if you question the government or have a peaceful protest that's allowed, that's now defined as a terrorist uh, gathering, according to the new, Patriot Act laws, our government has decided that our money, your money and my money, is better spent dropping firebombs to indiscriminately murder innocent civilians sleeping in their bed. Now, there are good, decent people here in America who are homeless, starving, and hopeless. Ask 100 American people whether they want their tax dollars going to the war machine or specifically to make a bomb that might land on a hospital. Most people will, of course, tell you not. No, they don't want their tax dollars going to things like bombs and wars, right? After 9/11, the American people were a horse of a different color, though. The mass media, using their repetitious, typical mass hypnosis techniques, had an entire country and world in fear by taking coordinated, contrived events and trying to manipulate our social and defense policies as a response to an attack that obviously came from within, probably directed by the CIA or something of that nature. Between NORAD, or the the air defense systems of the country, which is very convenient to the northeast of the country, by the way, with Washington D.C. and New York being so close. But NORAD can usually get scramble fighter jets anywhere in the country, or anywhere in a well-populated area within 20 minutes. So the mass media indeed kept the entire country and world in fear after 9/11 by using coordinated, contrived events, and tried to manipulate our social and defense policies as a result. Of course, NORAD was shut down that day doing drills all day. So the fast responder jet squadrons that should have intercepted the second and third and fourth supposed planes, but didn't, it's rather big of a coincidence to most of us. It's obvious now that the U.S. government is not exactly looking out for our best interests, nor do they understand their true place in the relationship here. Their power is only given to them by the people, meaning any president or governor, senator, or any group of House or Congress only has power because of the people they are sworn to represent. I doubt we've had a representative government since the Continental Congress under the Articles of Confederation, before George Washington was the first president. So you actually have a lot of people don't know this, but yeah, there was eight presidents prior to George Washington, and to me, this is indicative. It was pre-Constitution, post-Constitution, or Declaration of Independence, rather. However, all of these documents, all of these contracts, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, they appear to be, not so, legally perfect documents as we've been led to believe. Um, Unfortunately, the American government has always been a Freemasonic organization, at least since the Articles of Confederation were replaced by the Constitution, and it seems the Revolutionary War was not actually won by the good guys. There's something being hidden from us. For why would they teach everyone George Washington was the first president when in fact he was the ninth? As silly as this might all seem to you, America has been bought and sold to the highest bidder, which is still going on today, actually. Which is why we've seen the decline of most domestic manufacturing jobs, which have been exported overseas, where labor is cheaper, and workers' rights are not an issue. This is fairly obvious, but lots of good jobs are necessary to have a middle class. And without the middle class, then you don't have consumers to buy corporate products, and so the whole thing sort of falls apart when corporate greed supersedes the prosperity of a nation, which is what we've got today. And since all the corporations have shipped, or most of the corporations have shipped their manufacturing overseas, and their customer service jobs, etc., etc., no president or politician is going to solve this problem without providing incentives for corporations to bring their manufacturing back home.